Good morning. Good morning to each and every one of you. Welcome to Mornings with Mobile, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will be covering the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. Good morning to each and every one of you. It is Tuesday, June 17th. uh at 6:30. I'm gonna let David in. Yes, because I have Chief Defender Keisha Hudson Brooks, who's also going to join us this morning. She was supposed to join us yesterday and something came up. Life happens, right? And so she'll join us today. But I'm also going to, good morning, Laura, pinky hand waving. I am also going to let David Alexander Jenkins in so we can have a couple of minutes to talk before she comes on. Come now. Hoocha. Good morning, Laura, Beatrice, Lena. I see you all here. Monica, too. Good morning. Good morning, my darlings. It's another great morning in Philadelphia, and so much is going on. It's just a lot. It's a lot. Whew. Father Abraham had many sons. I am realizing that I'm sitting there this morning trying to fix my dress. Oh, the dress is too big, but guess who's not taking it off? It's going to stay on because I've got work to do today, and I have many things going on. Let me quickly cover a little bit of news before David joins us. Let's see what's going on. Whew. Let's see. State Rep Malcolm Kenyatta, Democrat of the 181st District, won re-election to the Democratic National Committee Vice Chair, seat he previously won in February. The re-vote followed a party decision that February's vote was handled unfairly, forcing Kenyatta and fellow Vice Chair David Hogg to stand for election for one seat. Hogg, a Parkland shooting survivor and activist, quit the race Wednesday. Kenyatta ran unopposed. What? Lord have mercy. Kenyatta ran unopposed and won over 99% of the vote. I have to. And also this morning is season 3, episode 2 of the podcast. There's too much going on over here. I really do need a producer over here on some days. Let me see. There he is. All right, I'll let him in. Hold on one second. Well, look at you.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning from
morning to
London.
you.
How are you, my darling, with your
Well,
jet
I'd
on?
like to welcome you to the Royal Enclosure at Royal Ascot. And please join us here for the King's Races.
Wow, look at
This is a
that.
fantastic event. Every year we have this. Cheers to you and to our listeners this morning. But this is Royal Ascot Enclosure. This is the first day. This is members only. That's what the badge is. And just get a picture of what you're seeing here.
Wow.
Welcome to the Royal Enclosure. I'm going to take you down to where the race begins, so you can really get a flavor of the moment. But
Wow.
this is our picnic once a year. Yeah. And so, if anyone is wondering what a military parade looks like or what a real king looks like, welcome to Ask It. That's what it's like.
Wow.
Not that sad little thing happening in Washington on Thursday.
That is beautiful, David.
I can't even.
How many years have you been going there?
I've been a member since 2005. I think.
Wow.
And I think I attended 5 years before that.
Okay.
So it's a bit incestuous. This little group of people know
You know,
it's great.
David, I'm so grateful for you because in a time when we are caught up with so much craziness going on in our lives, this was a
Yeah.
welcome respite. This just to
Oh,
see the beautiful grounds and all the things that are going on behind you. It is such a welcome respite. Oh God.
yeah. So this is it's an annual and fixed point in my year. It begins the summer season for me, and that starts here. Yesterday was Garter Day in
Mhm,
England, and so the oldest order of chivalry in the world is the Order of the Garter, and they
mhm,
processed from Windsor Castle down to St. George's Chapel, where everyone will
mhm,
remember where Prince Harry and Meghan Markle married,
mhm.
and where the Queen was laid to rest. So that famous chapel at Windsor Castle, and we had Trooping the Colour earlier in the week. And so I arrived for trooping and then for Garter. And I'm here for Ask It for the next few days.
He's in
And then
London.
we
Those
have,
are asking, where's David? He's in London.
aha,
London,
I'm in
England.
London, England.
Yes.
Hello, darling. Welcome to England.
Ooh, beautiful.
So I want to show you
Beautiful.
some things. There's a couple of things which are really important here. I'm going to try to run across the grass. I'm leaving the Queen's royal enclosure. I'm going to end up over here in Queen Anne's enclosure. So yes, England is still a tiered social society,
Mhm.
and everyone is separated by class here still. So I'm
Wow.
leaving what's called the royal enclosure, and this is we're still in the royal enclosure. And I
Look at
want
how
to show you
beautiful
the
that
king's
is.
box. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is the king's box. How do I do this? How do I show you that? Okay, I can do this. Look up there to the little round box with flowers. You
Yes,
see
I
it?
see it. Yes.
That is this box. And that is where I met Her Majesty the Queen. The last time before she passed away was in that very box that's online. Can you
It
see
looks like
it?
a circular thing, right?
Yes, yes.
That's the king's box. Wow.
That is the
Wow. We
King's
see
box.
it.
And he wanted the races.
Yes.
And we have a happy time and a joyous occasion here.
Mhm.
And we've always done so. And so I want to welcome you all from the United States of America to come and look at what's happening today in England. This is Royal Ascot. This is what it's all about. It's all about the racing in the beginning of the summer. And this is how we start the season. This is the very
Oh.
beginning of the social season for the next year.
Beautiful. And so Marguerite said, those are real aristocrats. I'm here for it. You know,
Ah,
we play wealthy in this country. And
yeah,
and
no,
when we
no.
play wealthy, it is a gaudy look, right? You know, I have this beautiful car, and I'm traveling all over, and we're constantly posting and posing about how well-to-do we are, which is really in English terms for people who are of true
It's
aristocrats.
gauche.
It's
Yeah,
yes, it's gauche. It is. It's gaudy, as we would say, right? Um,
indeed.
Marguerite says he's got great internet. My internet ain't that clear across the street from my house. So thank you for the
Oh,
beautiful respite. We're looking forward to seeing you back home because you and I have a date on the 24th.
we do, and
We
we're
do.
gonna trip the light fantastic. We're going to trip the
I
light
just hope
fantastic.
the people are ready when we make our
You know,
entrance.
I wanna draw some parallels to
Hmm.
what the world looks like. You know, I've been singing the song "We'll Be Back," and you'll see. You'll remember you belong to me. Oceans rise and tides fall. You'll be together through it all. And when push comes to shove, I will send a British Army battalion to remind America of my love. La da 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 da. And I don't know that we're that far from King Charles sending an American battalion to remind us all of his love.
Yes.
I will say that I was both deeply saddened and awfully proud last week of America, and particularly of Philadelphia. I was deeply saddened to see this understanding uh, of someone trying to create a kingship in the United States of America by forcing the military to goose step through the streets.
Mhm.
But I was also super proud of Philadelphia for the opposition it put up to the craziness. Did you see that?
Mhm.
I mean, it was a week in London. It was talked about, and
Yes.
and and uh, and I will say that having been at Trooping, which is a military parade, it's the King's birthday parade, and having been there and seen that celebration, there is a clear difference between the freedom to celebrate someone and the command so to do. And I am across the pond hopeful that Americans continue to stand up and say no to this
Yes.
understanding of craziness because it is craziness, isn't it?
Yes.
Uh, and I'm reminded as I stand here today for the many years that I've stood here in this very spot at the Royal
Beautiful.
Ascot. Oh,
Just
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah.
Enjoy for us, my darling. We'll talk soon. I'll talk to you next Monday.
Absolutely.
I'll take pictures, post videos so we can see. We
Now,
love you.
yes, and before I go, I do want to say to everyone, when Andrea and I told you now is the time, now is the time. And I want to leave you with that. Now is the time.
Now is the time. Love you, my darling.
Cheers to you.
See
Love you
you
more.
soon.
Bye now.
Bye bye. Bye bye. So before, thank you, Sarita. Bye, darling. Bye bye. I want to talk about the season 3, episode 2, supporting strong. Good morning, Roslyn. You just missed David Alexander Jenkins live from London, England. Dr. Rufus Sylvester Lynch, chair of the Strong Families Commission, discussed with me the critical role of fathers in child well-being, the systemic issues surrounding fatherhood, and his advocacy for a permanent commission for fatherhood to address these challenges. He shared his journey, the challenges fathers face in family courts, and the need for agencies to include fathers in their services. The conversation highlights the significance of understanding the roles of both mothers and fathers in child welfare and the impact of family structures on children well-being. Right on time after the Father's Day. Father's Day was just 2 days ago. And so that's season 3, episode 2. Dr. Rufus Sylvester Lynch, chair of the Strong Families Commission, is our second guest. I woke up this morning and saw that some of you had already watched it and have appreciated what he had to say. And I was grateful. The conversation is one that is rife with truths. Some of it is hard to listen to, particularly as he addressed fathers who would give up and walk away because they had such a struggle getting to see their children. And so it's one that I would encourage you to listen to. You can find us on Substack, Apple, and Spotify. It's just a great episode. So make sure you listen. I ask him. I'm asking you. Make sure you subscribe to Substack, which is where most people are. You are seeing me. Doing a lot more production over there, posting things there, because social media here in Facebook, as it stands in particular, are shifting things. Every 30 days, the videos are destroyed because they're not saving them anymore. And so we're going over to Substack. We're probably at some point going to move completely over to Substack for our live broadcast along with YouTube. So I'm encouraging you. Many of you are accustomed to being on Facebook, but life is shifting. So we're shifting right along with it, which is what we've always done. Sarita Martin is the producer, and Eric Nixon is the editor of the podcast. Please go check out season 3, episode 2. Dr. Rufus Sylvester Lynch from the Fathers Commission, talking about what's going on with men and their children, what role women play in that, and what we can do. Alexandra, good morning. Oh, my Rosin, you said that you saw him. That top hat was wow. Do you see how beautiful it was there? Right? It was such a great respite for me because I have been very transparent with all of you. I said to my friend Denise yesterday, I said, I'm not sleeping. I am just not sleeping. So much is going on out here, and I feel the energy from a lot of it, and so it soaks into my system. And it makes it a little difficult. So I'm really, really grateful. Good morning, Cheryl Brown. Good morning. I see that the podcast is posting on Facebook. So thank you for that. It's just been a lot. It's been a lot. And so I want us in this day and time to really think about the fathers of our children. I want us to think about the fathers, our own particular fathers who we may or may not have had to spend a lot of time with, depending on the circumstances that were going on inside our homes. I want us to think about how that impacts us. When you listen to Dr. Rufus Sylvester Lynch, how that impacts us today. Some people, were able to say, Happy Father's Day to my wonderful dad, and post all these great pictures. Some of them posting pictures because their fathers have already passed. But there are quite a few people, and I have to remember this because when my mother passed away, I had quite a few people reach out to me to say, my mother isn't the greatest. My mother tortured me. My mother didn't do X, Y, and Z. Well, it's the same for fathers on some levels, right? So I want to make sure that we embrace and appreciate people from all walks of life and where their journey is with their parents, but particularly in this case with their fathers. And so Dr. Rufus Sylvester Lynch gave us a great conversation. It really was. around what is going on, how are we navigating, with our fathers. So Spotify, Apple, and Substack. Many of you are on Substack, so that's where I am. If you want to subscribe to Substack to be a paid subscriber, it's $8 a month, $80 a year. We appreciate all of you, in all of this process that we're doing. It's been a lot, y'all. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. So we'll see season two. I'm sorry, I keep saying season two. We're in season three, episode two. The podcast cover looks just like that right here, right? As you can see me. So if you see that, then you see us. And all you have to do is put in A Lawful Truth. It'll show up on Spotify, Apple, or Substack. Laura says, I am blessed to still have my dad around. We celebrated on Sunday. My sisters and I are too. I have to be very transparent and say, once our mother passed away, we were very hyper about our father to make sure that he was okay. And then it shifted a little bit, right? It's weird. It's weird knowing that your parents have been together for almost 60 years, and then your father's trying to figure it out, and you're trying to help him navigate that part. And so we talk to him every day. We talk to him. We make sure he's okay. I haven't physically spoken, like I haven't gotten on a call with him for a little while, but every day I talk, he asks us how we're doing. I tell him about the grandchildren. I send him pictures of copy, paste, and repeat. I send him pictures of son number one and son number two. I give him updates on what's going on with him so that he doesn't feel like he's missing anything as we talk through. But there's so many people who are not having that kind of conversation or joy with their parents. And I want to acknowledge that, because it's just not always peaches and cream for so many people, I'm still waiting. Good morning. Let me see. I'm still waiting for, and I don't know. She said she would be on this morning, so we just have to wait and see. Alexander says, wait, I miss David. His videos have been joy, honey. David came in live from London, England for the annual Ascot and showed us the King's box and what it's like out there, and that there's a royalty, and this is it's a lot going on. No. Hold on. Let me send the link again. All right, hold on. She's trying to come in. Hold on. Let me do this. Live television, child. Live. I'm telling you always. This is my life. I'm always in the live television trying to do something. Hold on. Hold on. I'm gonna send it again because I really want you guys to experience her. Lord Jesus, pray my strength, Lord. Pray my strength, Lord. Here we go. What is it? Mornings with Mother? Mornings with Mother. There we go. I need you all to pray for Mother if you're the praying kind. If you are the praying kind, pray for Mother. So Lena says, I miss my dad at this time of year tremendously, especially this week with it being his birthday and Father's Day. Coming up in my Facebook memories, my father was here right after Mommy passed away. We bought him a ticket, brought him here to me, and then my sisters flew in and came, and we were all here, and we took him. He ate out every day. He saw my in-laws. We took him to New York. He got the Statue of Liberty. We took him to the Empire State Building. We drove to Niagara Falls. We were all over the place. He had an amazing time. And I'm grateful now that we have all those pictures. Keisha Hudson Brooks is trying to get in. So once she gets in, we'll have the conversation. He had such a good time that now I can look at the memories. Pictures. When he told me he made me that I cooked. I asked him what he wanted to eat. I made so much food for him to eat, and he spent the whole time John took him somewhere. John, my father-in-law, took him somewhere. He went and hung out with some other folks over there. We were all over the place. We rented an Airbnb in North Jersey, close to New York. He ate out every night. And one of the things that I appreciated about my father was he never wasted his food. He didn't order and then couldn't eat it. He ate every we were like, how are you gonna put all that in your belly? But he ate. And we did Niagara Falls and went up the trail, and he was like, he looked at me and said, don't you fear God? Don't you know you could die up there? And I was like, bye, daddy. And I went trucking up there with the sister right behind me and her husband, and he just looked at us and he shook his head. We took him at Empire State Building. We're all the way up at the top, and he was just like, I can't go up there. We grabbed him. He got up there, and he was just holding on for dear life, like the building was going to topple over from the 96th floor. And he had a good time. And then we sat and we talked to him about all the things that are going on. And then Christmas time, he spends it in Jamaica with one of my other sisters. We either fly in or drive in, because some of us are close enough to him to drive to see him. I usually fly in to go see him. And we make sure he's okay. We make sure he's eating. We make sure that his air conditioning unit works. We make sure that nothing is broken in the house. We do all those things to keep him where, he needs to be. And so far, so good. He is okay. Let me see if she'll be able to get in. I'm not sure what's going on with her thing. I'm still trying to see if she'll be able to get in. Alexander says, I miss my grandfather and the men who raised me with him. And I saw like David Lipscomb. David, good morning. I think that is you that I'm looking at, or is that David Alexander Jenkins? I think that's David Lipscomb. Was talking about a woman who made a man pay $2,500 a month only to find she had a housing voucher, and it was $106 that she was paying. He was paying $2,500 a month for 5 years. We get it. We understand that there's some horrible things and that there's horrible people out here. But I want us to spend the days that celebrate fathers by giving them a space to just be, to absolutely just be. I honored my husband and my oldest son, who are both fathers, and make sure I spend some quality time with them. I gave both my husband and my son an RFID wallet. My son was like, "This is thank you, Mom." And if you don't know what an RFID wallet is, it's the one that protects your credit cards from being stolen, just from having it in your pocket. And they're cute. And you press the buttons and the cards fly up when you push them back in, and nothing can access them. And so there we are with all of this. There she is. There she is. Oh, you got somebody to help you, Keisha. I can't hear you. Tell your husband. Tell it her sound is off. She's muted. There he is. See?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? There. I can hear you now.
Okay. My husband is very tall, so I have to look at the screen. It's very strange. Oh, there we go. There we go. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, husband. You are a shorty. Oh my gosh, if you move, I can't see you.
No, I can't. I gotta raise my chair. Hold on.
Can you raise it?
Let me see. Sweetie?
Yep. You might have to stand up for him to raise your chair.
He's 6'5", I'm 5'2".
How did you manage that?
I don't know.
Since becoming the Defenders Association's chief defender in November of 2021, Keisha Hudson has brought both local and national attention to the critical role of public defenders in maintaining and you're much taller, and reforming the criminal justice system. Drawing on her extensive experience as an accomplished lawyer, leader, and activist, she has enhanced the Defenders' client services and reshaped its mission to be more inclusive and people-focused. You've been around you have a 22-year career. Good morning, my sister and a fellow yardie.
Yes, Mom. Good morning.
How you doing?
Yeah.
I am it's so good to see you, because I've always wanted to have a discussion with you, but I wanted our discussion to be based and rooted in something that makes sense for the both of us. You are a badass public defender. You are taking on the system. You are letting people know that you are not playing with them. And I'm just grateful. So let's start by talking a little bit about your role at the Defenders Association in Philadelphia. How long have you been there?
I started in November of 2021. So
2021.
a little over 3.5 years.
Okay.
And but I began my career at the Defenders in 2002, right after law school. So I started my career there, and then spent 4 years there. Then went to the Federal Defenders where I did death penalty work for
Mhm.
10 years. Then I was in Montgomery County as the Deputy Chief Public Defender. And then when the opportunity opened up to come back, I couldn't pass up that opportunity to lead
Yeah.
this organization.
And your team seems happy to work with you. You're always highlighting and posting them. I want to thank you for that.
I forbid them from calling me boss. I don't like that word. Um, I like the word colleagues. One thing about the Defender Association that I'm really proud of, and I think it's unique from many other organizations, is 25% of our staff has been there in excess of 30 to 40 years. So we have people who started their careers there and have stayed. Our longest serving defender has been there for 53 years. She started right after law school and has never left. So when I came back, I just said, I have so much to learn from everyone, and I think the word boss connotes a certain kind of like feeling among people, like I'm gonna be hierarchical in terms of how I lead, and that's not how I lead.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me now about you've been in the news quite a bit. Where do
Uh,
you want to start? Do we want to talk about homelessness? Do we want to talk about the budget? Do we want to talk about immigration? Where would you like to start?
we can talk about all of it. Let's. I think I have to start with immigration. You and I are immigrants. We know. I think people do not understand the sacrifice that our parents make when they decide they're going to leave another country or send their children to another country, and why those reasons are. And, I was reading a report that 2,400 Jamaicans are going to be deported to Jamaica. And they will be on the spectrum. There will be people deported who have no family ties. There will be people deported who have no really employment ties or education systems and or support systems for them when they go back home. So
How did
we
they end up choosing the 2400?
it's let's be honest about Trump's focus on everyone, right? We know that a lot of Jamaicans immigrate, and they're the backbone of the farming community, right? There has been special visas that allows
Yes.
a lot of Jamaicans to come here temporarily, to work on farms and to pick fruit, particularly in Florida. And they are the backbone. You know how hard we work. You know that as well as every other immigrant, right, are the backbone of the agricultural system here and the restaurant system and the doctoral and nursing system, right?
Yes.
That the childcare system, people who take care of your children, right? These are Jamaicans, these are immigrants, and we know that Trump has cast a very wide net, and it's not just criminals. When he ran,
Right.
it was all well. We're going to target people who've committed crime, and what we've seen is that 15% of the people who are being detained and deported are actually people involved in the criminal justice system. Just 15%. The
Wow.
rest are people who are the backbone of America.
Yes.
Um, and we do not have an immigration defense unit at the Defender Association. In this budget cycle, we asked for 1.8 million from the city to start an immigration defense unit so that we can be in court standing next to people. You do not have a right to an attorney in federal immigration court, right? Public defenders, we are constitutionally required attorneys if you're involved in the criminal justice system, but there's no equivalent right if you're an immigrant or a non-citizen in the federal immigration court process. You do not
So
have a
they're
right.
just left to waffle?
They're left, including children. And you'll see videos of children as young as 5 in courtrooms across America who are sitting in court before a judge, and they do not have counsel. They do not have representation. And you'll see these judges, try to ask them if they understand the system, and of course they don't. They're children. So one of the things that, I think, we have to emphasize is that everyone has a right to an advocate sitting next to them in any court process. Children, especially children, but right now they go unrepresented.
Wow. Wow. So, what happens when people are protesting in the streets, in the last few days, particularly here in Philadelphia, since this is where you are, and they find themselves arrested? Does the Defenders Association jump in to support them and on any level?
We do, and when the George Floyd protests happened, and defenders Keir Bradford Gray and Alan Tauber worked with Krasner at that time to have a restorative justice process for everyone who came through the system
Hmm.
from the George Floyd protests. We had a protest last week at the Federal
Hmm.
Detention Center. 15 people were arrested, and we worked collaboratively with District Attorney Krasner to ensure that all 15 were released without charging. If you saw the video of what happened at that protest, and if you saw the actions of the police, these were not police officers who were trained to handle protests, right? And what happens when you have a response of force to people who are lawfully protesting? People are going to push
Right.
back. And so we were able to talk with the district attorney about what we should do with the people brought into the system. Thankfully, on Saturday there was just one arrest,
Hmm.
which is remarkable because I think Philadelphia had one of the largest protests in the
They
country,
did.
if not the largest. And there was one person arrested, and it was a peaceful protest. And we are, very happy about the fact that not many more people were brought into the system at that point.
Right.
But this is, we're not at a George Floyd moment yet. But I think it's coming. I think it's only a matter of time that it's coming. And I enjoy a very good working relationship with District Attorney Krasner, where we can talk about how to address people who come into the system by a
Right.
right of exercising their First Amendment rights. Right, the First Amendment is under attack, but it's still very much a right to protest. And people can debate whether it's peaceful and nonviolent,
Hmm.
under the Martin Luther King time, or whether it becomes a protest that involves um, other tactics, right?
Yeah.
Which over time have also worked.
Yes. Yeah. You believe that the George Floyd moment is coming. Many of us feel the same way. Many of us feel the same way. What do you say to people who are immigrants, even if they're here legally? Because it seems like that doesn't even seem to matter anymore, right? Okay. So, what do you say to people who are immigrants and are really concerned about what could happen to them in the midst of all of this? Because they're not even discriminating and saying, all right, we'll choose the people that are long-time green card holders are being sent back to their countries.
Correct. Correct. That is correct. So there was a alert that went out on Friday, late on
Mhm.
Friday afternoon, through the department, the Department of Human Services or Department of Homeland Security, that went out to immigrants in large cities, including San Francisco and Philadelphia. They got this text message late Friday around 5 p.m., and they were told to report on Sunday, on Father's Day, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. There was no context. They had to just report to DHS. And these are people who are in the process of getting their documentation. And they're in the process, whether it's an asylum process or a refugee process or they're in the green card process, they're getting their documentation. They're doing the right thing, right? The lawful thing. And they were given late notice on Friday to come in on Sunday from 8 to 4 p.m. And the Inquirer wrote an article that was published on Monday, that explained that many people reported, some of them with their family members, because their family members, and again, it's Father's Day. Now, any day
Right.
that does this is to me atrocious, but to do it on Father's Day is exceptionally cruel. But they were told to report with no notice, and I think because they knew people could not get their lawyers there, right, on a Sunday at Father's Day. And so the article talked about a lot of people tried to get their lawyers to come with them, and their lawyers were not available on such short notice. Some lawyers were able to go with their clients, but it's this powerful story of this woman who has children at home, and she accompanies her husband, and she waits 8 hours, and he doesn't come out, and then she sees a van pull out of the facility, and he's in
Wait,
the van. He's in the van. He's being detained, and she has her children texting her and calling her saying, what's going on with Poppy? Like, when is he
so
coming
they
home?
detained that. So the people who showed up, they were detaining them.
They were detaining them, and this happened in cities across America.
And what
And
would have happened if they did not show up?
the notice said that if they did not appear, it would be noted as a violation, which in the criminal justice context, you may call it a bench warrant, or some sort of summons that would have been issued that you did, but they are required to appear, right? They're required to appear. And the reason we were pushing again to start this immigration defense unit is because when you have legal counsel in these cases, the majority of people actually get to stay in the country, right? They get to go through the process, get their
Right,
document, and stay in the country. The vast majority, 80% of the people who have no legal counsel are deported. So when in every phase of the system, right, when you have no legal counsel standing next to you, you are going to be deported.
I'm
These are
sorry.
families,
This is actually bringing me to tears
these are children, right?
because it just feels so inhumane. It's
It,
one thing if we're talking about, folks breaking the law and doing all sorts of other things, and harming and killing people, but these folks were going through the process,
they're
the
going through the
legal process to get their green cards, the legal process to have asylum, to get asylum. What happened when we are here in this country
Mhm.
and these kinds of things are happening? How do we navigate this?
I will just say for everyone listening, I immigrated in 1992. My mother was recruited as a nurse because there was a nurse shortage in the Bronx and across America, same in Canada. And they came to the Caribbean and they recruited the nurses from the Caribbean. I immigrated in 1992, and it took me 8 years and my mother an inordinate amount of money, inordinate amount of money.
That's the part we don't talk about, how much it costs to do this.
Right, an inordinate amount of money, and I got my citizenship in 2000. So it was 8 years. I was already in college. I actually had already started law school when I got my citizenship. People need to understand that, when we hear this argument of they should have done it the right way, right? They should have gone through the process. It is tens of thousands of dollars for people to be able to afford to go through this process. And it is lengthy and it is complicated. And this was before 9/11.
Right.
Okay, this was before 9/11, when it was actually, everyone said it was much easier. It is so costly for people who are coming here to make a better life, whether they are escaping a country where there's violence or persecution, or they're coming here to make a better life for themselves or their families. It is so much of an economic investment, and it takes so much time. And I don't think people grasp that.
Right. Yeah. I think they think folks just walk into the immigration office and says, I want to get a green card. Explain to people the cost just to file for a green card to stay here in the country.
To stay here in the country, you're going to need an immigration attorney. In the city of Philadelphia, there are two agencies that primarily work with people who are, if you're seeking asylum and refugee status. It
Mhm.
is the Nationality Services Center and Highest. And Highest represents children, had a federal grant to represent children who were unaccompanied, right? So children who came here and got here with no parents. And they had over 400 children that they represented. And the federal government eliminated their grants earlier this year, which means that they are no longer representing those unaccompanied minors. And again, let me state, over 400 clients that they had actively been working with now have no attorney, right? Because those federal grants were cut. We are talking, if you're lucky enough to find a pro bono attorney, there are wonderful immigration lawyers who will represent you free of charge. but many of them, of course, right, will charge. At the base minimum level, you're talking $20,000 to $30,000.
Yeah. And the filing fees to file for all of this without an attorney is how much money?
The filing fees, I don't know the filing fees because it's been a while since I went through the
Right.
grievance
So
process.
I spoke to someone some months ago who said they had to pay $3,700 just to file. So folks think that people just come in and you literally, it's
Thousands of
tens of
dollars.
thousands of dollars to go through this process. And folks don't, we have to stop walking around thinking that folks just come in and just get a green card, or folks just come in and just get asylum. And there's so much that they have to go through, right? They have to show that they're paying taxes. They have to show that they have not been in the criminal justice system. The other thing that I want people to recognize is the majority of immigrants that are here are not in the criminal justice system. They're staying out of it because they really truly want to stay in the country.
It's a very small proportion. As I said before, 15% of those who are being detained and deported have had some criminal justice involvement. And let me just underscore that in that category, there are people who have a prior record and have been criminal justice involved free for decades, right? So you could have committed a misdemeanor 10 years ago and have been living a productive life and a business owner and a working member of community. And we have to remember, non-citizens without documentation pay into our tax system billions of dollars a year, and you could be criminal justice free and still being detained and deported. You just have to have touched the system. You could have been innocent and you just had an arrest and you went through the process and you were found not guilty, but you had that criminal justice involvement. You're going to be detained and deported. So when I talk about that 15%, I'm not talking about, what people may imagine are just people who are out there committing violent crimes. I'm talking about anyone who has touched the criminal justice system.
Ooh. And when I think about the amount of people that are feeling unsafe right now,
People are not leaving their homes.
they're not going to the markets,
They're
they're
not.
not traveling, they're not driving, they're not going anywhere.
They're not. And I have to tell you, every time I travel now, I bring my naturalization certificate in addition to my passport, of course, whether it's domestic or, of course, international. I need it. But I think people who are non-white, but particularly people in the Latino community, are feeling that they really truly need to protect themselves and stay home.
And how does that impact the economy over time? People don't
Well,
realize that if you're not
had
showing up to work,
Trump had a little bit of a moment after the parade, the military parade, where he issued a pause on workplace raids, because I'm thinking he's hearing from the people who voted for him to
mhm,
say, there's a video of ICE agents chasing immigrants through a farm, right, in California. They're chasing people who are running. They're running through the farm, people who were picking the crops, and Pennsylvania will feel the pain when it comes harvest season. Because it's for many of the crops that are grown in Pennsylvania, it's not harvest season yet. But come fall, they're going to have a really, really difficult time um, being able to find people who are going to do this work, because of so many people, even the people who are not in the deportation process, are just saying, you know what, it's safer for me to either self-deport and go back home because then I can bring my children, I can bring my family, or I'm just going to stay home and stay under the radar and hope that I don't get detained.
someone is asking what's going to happen to the students, Jasenia, what's going to happen to the students who are here on student visas? They're deporting them as well.
I would encourage, do not leave the country, which is really challenging, right? Again, you want to go home, you want to see your family, right? You may think, it's school break. I'm going to go home and see my family. I think I don't think it is wise at this time to travel at all. Do not leave the country would be my advice. If you have left the country, come back immediately. Cut the time you're visiting, cut that time short, and come
Right.
back immediately. I think, right now, I look at Penn, for example, who just issued a directive. University of Pennsylvania just issued a directive and told all their students, who are international students, to, if they are overseas, to return to campus immediately, right? And they issued that directive in the last week. I
Wow.
do not think it's safe to travel if you're an international student. I think, what we saw with Harvard, is something that we're going to see with other institutions, where at any moment's notice there could be a directive issued from the White House that, that you are, any institution is to end their enrollment and or, um, their teaching of international students. So that would be my advice. And if you've already left the country to visit family, as one does, to come back as quickly as possible.
I have been having conversations with my own family and friends, and they're traveling with trepidation or not traveling at all.
Yeah, yes. Which I also think is by design, right?
You think so?
I think it's by design, right? I think it's to keep us really kind of, in disarray, to keep us untethered and, away from our families and our connections. And there's a price to that, right? There's an article that said that the U.S. tourism industry is facing a $25 billion loss, under these policies this year. So, there is going to be an economic cost, and Trump may decide at some point, to lift these restrictions. But, then, because every day is a new terror, yesterday he issued a travel ban on 36 countries,
So he issued it.
and it is overwhelmingly Caribbean and African,
Okay.
right? St. Lucia is on that list. I
Yeah.
think there are 200,000 people who live on the island of St. Lucia, and it's listed on the list of countries that harbor terrorists. St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, right? These are black and brown countries, right? These are the overwhelmingly Caribbean and African countries. And I do think that it's no conspiracy theory to say that he is really trying to poke the African American community and bring us out. He wants a George Floyd moment. I do think it's coming. But all of this is really designed. This
Right.
targeting of the black and brown community is really a design, and a tactic to get us to respond in a way where he then gets to respond.
Right. Because once you push people and push them and push them and push them, it's only a matter of time before they come. And you see it's happening in Los Angeles right now.
Yes.
If the George Floyd moment is coming, what do people need to do to be prepared? Because I've been having this conversation about making sure your food supplies are stocked, making sure, and I'm not sure if people are hearing me, Keisha. Tell me if
I
I'm
think
exaggerating. Tell me if I'm going overboard with this.
you're not, but I think Black people are tired. I think we're tired. Black women in particular. I know you've heard about, and I know you've talked about the 92% movement, where Black women in particular, right? 92% of Black women voted for Harris, are
Mhm.
just saying, we will show up at the polls, but nowhere else.
Yeah.
And, when you look at the protests across the country, there were Black people there, but it was overwhelmingly,
White. Mhm.
white, and, other ethnicities, right? So
Yeah.
I think we're I think we, Black women, Black people, are taking a moment to rest. I do think we are being thoughtful and about what we're going to get involved in. The Target boycott is a great
Yeah.
example, right? There are other ways to protest that has power, and
Mm-hmm.
we have eliminated Target as a major economic force in only
Mm-hmm.
6 months, right? So there are other
Right.
powerful ways to protest, but we're thinking, we don't need to be out there on the front lines, because we have always been out there on the front lines, and
Mm-hmm.
we will be at the polls. But I do think people are preparing, in the sense that I'm seeing a movement of people leaving the country, uh,
Yes.
or preparing to leave the country. Right, it's a long term process, but I've seen people starting more conversation about, should I leave and where do I go, and research, and people actually making the move to leave.
Yes.
I've also seen communities come together and say we have to be very hyper local about how we support one another. Right,
Mm-hmm.
put GoFundMe aside. Right, GoFundMe is another entity. We need our own economic entity so
Absolutely.
that we can respond and support each other. On a personal note, my nephew had gotten, who is graduating high school in a few weeks, had gotten a scholarship as a student in high school who ran cross country, and he's graduating second in his class in law in high school, and he'd gotten a scholarship, but it was labeled, or the scholarship was for black young men in high school. That scholarship was taken away, right? Tens of thousands of dollars, right? Gone for his college education. So you're seeing the community say, okay, if we're going to eliminate grants, if we're going to eliminate opportunities under DEI,
Mm-hmm.
then the Black community needs to stand up and
Yes.
respond in our own economic way.
Yes. I agree. I just saw a thing that American Delta and another airline are selling people's passenger details to the federal government. Like they're giving it. So even if you are, so if it's designed for us to be in such fear that we don't travel, we don't move, we don't do anything, we're crippling the economy.
And I do think it's only a matter of time before those policies are reversed, but they're going to do lasting generational damage, right? Nothing that's being done now, whether it is a policy or a process through the courts, um, it's gonna have lasting
Mhm,
damage, and
mhm,
unfortunately, we are gonna bear the brunt. And when I say we, right, people of color,
mhm.
bear the brunt of that, which is why people are coming up with you know very creative ways that we can support each other. I'm
Yeah.
noticing a movement on social media of a lot of Black women turning to gardening and farming,
Yes, yes.
and I
Yes.
include myself.
Potatoes, tomatoes, all sorts of things are being grown in our yards. Absolutely. So we can locally support each other that without having to buy the food. And we are also pulling our monies together. So,
Hard
like in the case of your nephew, how did you work through that grant? Like what did the family do, because we have a local thing here in Philadelphia called IB Big Investment, where it's just Black investors, and we have now, I think, over $300,000 in there. We actually take that money and we use it to help people, or we give a small loan with like no like a 1% interest, that kind of stuff. So we're actually building our own monies so that we don't have to go and borrow or beg for stuff like this. What was the result for your nephew when they took away his huge scholarship? What did the family do? Did the family have a plan?
we had a plan, but also my brother, who's the dean of science at the college, at RIT, the Rochester Institute of Science of Technology. He's the dean of the College of Science. Has taught my nephew, a Black young man in America, financial um, security. And when he turned 18, he was able to buy his own car because
Hmm.
he's been working.
Hmm.
Remember, we are Jamaican. So, work ethic is something that we are known for, and
Yes,
we teach our children
the same
um,
thing.
the
Hmm.
same work ethic, and they
Hmm.
were, but it will come as a sacrifice, and of course, the family is surrounding him and supporting him financially as well. But to have been admitted, um, gotten an extensive scholarship, committed, so you turn down other opportunities,
Hmm.
then told at the ninth, at the 11th hour, that you no longer had that scholarship. I think about what's my 18-year-old nephew thinking about how he already knows, as a young Black man, how society sees him, and he's about to go out into the world, and the reality is now really, really, really apparent.
Yeah. Hard. And I know what you're talking about because I've had those conversations with my own sons, and told them that, You got to do what you need to do what you want to do, because nobody's going to give you anything. And I've said this on the air many times that when my oldest son uh, was finished school and was buying his first house. He was 22 and three quarters, and they said to him, it took them forever because his credit score was over 800, and he had saved his money. He did not ask us to help him on a down payment, and those people were absolutely stunned. And so that conversation we've been having on the air about, really making sure that we take care of our own, stop waiting for people to give us what we need to do. A question was just asked. You've been defending others. How do we now defend ourselves?
Mhm. That's a really great question. I think one of the things I would love is for us to be better educated on the criminal justice system involvement and the history of it, right? Um, Philadelphia leads the nation in the number of children, black and brown children, who are separated from their families and placed into foster care. We are number one. Um, the Inquirer, working with us, journalist Samantha Melamed has written extensive articles in the past year about the juvenile justice system and how we lead big cities in America in how much we detain Black children. This is by design. This is multi-generational, right? And I go all the way back when I think about the evolution of the child welfare system, and I think about the evolution of the prison system and the evolution of the juvenile justice system. We see one category of people being funneled into that system, and they are people who are predominantly they start with the base of poverty, right? So that's the base, and then once you get past that class distinction, it targets people who are black and brown. And I call it slavery by another name, and people always sit back and think that I'm being a little harsh there in that comparison, but that is what it is. The removal system, right? The removal system of children from their parents, right? That started in the 1600s because it was a tactic by white plantation owners to keep the black women, um, you know, um, you know, to subject them, right, by removing their children from them. And it just got codified in legislation in the 60s and 70s, but it started all the way in the 1600s and in the 1800s with the Indian removal and the boarding school removal of Native Americans to boarding schools.
Yes.
I think we need to be educated, and we need to educate each other, but also we need to care. And I think, unfortunately, because of the media, we see criminal justice system involvement as okay, put them, lock them away, throw away the key, give them the harshest punishment ever. But we don't realize that we are we are really not paying enough attention to the subjugation of each other. It is
Yes.
multi-generational, and it's going to go on for generations after generations. And it's by design, right? And so I tell people the power mapping is a pyramid, right? Look at it as a pyramid, and at the very very bottom of that pyramid, right, are what we call the underclass. And there is a reason why you want to always have the bottom of that pyramid,
The caste system.
caste system, while the very, very top of that pyramid, whether you want to call it the 1% or the top 10%, continues to build and amass power and wealth generation after generation while subjugating that very bottom of that pyramid, which is us. And if we
Jeez.
don't unite and educate each other and support each other, like when you read that headline of my client, and the headlines are always designed to grab your attention, right there, like, oh, robbery, carjacking,
Yes.
someone, like stabbed and their car stolen, and you read that, and what it doesn't tell you, which it can tell you because that's something I get to know, is the person behind
All
that
of this.
incident and how they got there.
Yes.
Um, and in 22 years, almost 23 years of doing this, I will tell you, none of my clients wake up and say, today is the day I'm going to commit a crime.
Right.
That's not the clients we represent. Now, there are clients who may be able to afford private counsel, but
Yes.
my clients, you are constitutionally entitled to a public defender if you cannot afford counsel, which means by its definition you're poor, right, or you're impoverished. And when you start from a level of poverty and people have no mechanism to support themselves, and or they have um, other things that are calling on them and other stressors that are calling on them, then criminal justice system involvement is usually inevitable. So, I want our community to kind of reckon with and talk about really, what is happening with the criminal legal system, as I call it, right? It's a system that's been legalized and designed this way, and support each other. Because again, I love to talk about this. The prison system was founded by the Quakers, and it was called a penitentiary. And it was because you were supposed to be penitent. It was designed for very short stays where you would think about what you had done. There was restorative justice involved, very short stays, and then there was rehabilitation focus, treatment focus, and then you're released back to your community, hopefully better than when you got into the system. And now here in 2025, we are incarcerating people at a level that is the largest in the world. And when we look at who's incarcerated, on class lines, it's people who are in poverty, and on racial lines, it's people who are black and brown.
It's I'm gonna have to bring you back because there's so many other things I want to ask you. But here's another question because I want to talk to you about the budget and homelessness. Just bear with me for a little bit, okay? With all the stuff that's going on in the country, they're looking at the Democratic-led cities. And one of the social media influencers called out Philadelphia and Chicago and some other places, and they said the Chicago mayor is not screwing around. He is like, you come, knock if you buck, come here if you want to. I know you have. What would have happened if you didn't have the support of Larry Krasner, A? And B, what is the mayor saying about all of this stuff that's coming towards Philadelphia as the seeded birthplace of the United States?
On immigration, what I know, the mayor speaking through the law department, right? So we haven't had the mayor come out like other mayors with a definitive statement regarding Philadelphia as a quote unquote either sanctuary city or a welcoming city.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had the mayor issue a statement, but speaking through the law department has said, the Kenny era policies remain in effect. And Kenny had challenged the first Trump administration on these issues, right? When the first Trump administration tried to cut federal funding to the city of Philadelphia because of its status as a sanctuary city. Kenny took the first Trump administration to court and won.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and interestingly enough, Kenny was in the Washington Post last week with an op-ed, uh, very much stating that we that Philadelphia should be seen, and that the biggest strengths of the city rests with the immigrant community, and lauded all the contributions of the community. Interestingly enough, he did not comment on the mayor's position. But it is interesting that he chose to send that op-ed to the Washington Post and not the Philadelphia Inquirer. And so, I think, in budget season, again, we asked for 1.8 million to come to the defenders to start our first immigration defense unit. We did not get that budget allocation. And so far, the mayor has not come forward, as she has on other issues, right? Hasn't come forward on the issue on immigration to talk about kind of maintaining Philadelphia as either a quote unquote sanctuary city or a welcoming city, as they're now referring to it. I will say that one of the interesting things is that silence in the face of fascism is not an option.
Yes.
And whether you think you can kind of remain behind the scenes and not say much, um, the comparison is walking into the room and sitting quietly and not making any sounds, in hopes that you can escape the impact, is does not work.
Right.
So, the cities where the mayors have been vocal are under attack, and the cities where the politicians have been silent are also under attack. Um, so it's really, in this administration, really not in the Trump administration, not an option to sit by quietly in hopes that perhaps he will overlook and or forget about a city because the city hasn't spoken up. That's not
Yeah.
happening. And that's not how fascism works.
Right. Right. You have been really vocal about your budget.
Hmm.
The district attorney's office gets marginally more. Like they get a whole lot more than the public defender's office. I've known
They,
this for years. I've been following it and researching and writing about it.
they do.
What has changed for the better?
For the better on budget, let me say that Keir Bradford Gray laid a foundation for how the Defender Association um, approaches budget season, which is that you start to build relationships with city council members, and there's a lot of education about our work. Unfortunately, unless you're in the system, you do not understand it, right? You really don't, unless you yourself are impacted or you have a family member. You really don't understand how complicated the system is,
Hmm.
and the difference with an advocate standing next to you and a
Right.
well-resourced advocate standing next to you will make it is innocence or guilt. And in the death penalty world, it may be innocence and or life in prison and or the death penalty, right? It depends on the counsel standing next to you and if they have the training and resources you need. So in the last, four budget cycles, right? I just finished my fourth budget cycle.
Hmm.
Um, or, there's the continuation of a lot of that, that don't have to do as much education with city council
Hmm.
because they get it, right? Because we've been doing this education of
Hmm.
why we need the resources we need. And just to level set for you, the police department's budget is $890 million a year, right? The public defender's budget is $69 million a year, right? Um, the district attorney's budget, we are almost at the same level with our budget. But what people don't recognize is that the district attorney gets 10 times the amount in grant funding than we do.
Yes.
The opioid settlement funds, right? 200 million was allocated to Philadelphia in the opioid settlement funds to be allocated over 18 years. That money went to the city of Philadelphia. There is no kind of parameters by which that funding is assigned. And every entity except the public defenders has gotten any of that opioid settlement fund, despite the fact that we represent 90% of the people who are arrested in Kensington.
Um,
Civil asset forfeiture, right? Right. So these are drug cases where, unfortunately, if you were selling drugs out of your grandma's house, that house may be
it's
taken
now.
a criminal in the criminal through the criminal justice process.
Hmm.
So, whenever people compare mine and the district attorney's budget, they say, well, you know, right, it's almost the same, but grant funding. Another thing that I try to tell people is that the district attorney represents everyone who comes through the system. The defenders, we represent 75% of people because we have something called a conflict, right? If there is uh, a five defendant case, right? We can only represent one of the five. We can't represent all five. And people push back and say, well, that's why the district attorney needs more funding. I push back because the district attorney has the police department, the FBI, the CIA, the ATF, all of these agencies as investigation forces. The Defender Association of Philadelphia has 29 investigators. And last year we had 30,000 adult clients plus 4,000 youth clients. So, the
29 investigators, 30,000 clients.
30,000 adult clients, 4,000 children,
Children.
34,000 people we represented last year. We have 29 social workers, right? The district attorney has the entire investigative arm of the police, the PA state police, and all the federal agencies at their disposal. They're building a $50 million forensics lab. What will that mean for my clients?
Right.
Right? I don't get the equivalent investment in resources. And we know forensics is one of the things that is the leading cause of exonerations
Right.
because sometimes science gets it wrong, right? particularly with junk science, right? When we talk about ballistics and we talk about bite mark identification, right? I should be able to go and hire experts for my clients to challenge what I'm getting from the district attorney's office, but we don't get that equivalent investment.
How can people support you? What can we do to help you?
I do. I mean, I think reach out to your city council members, right?
Okay.
Find out who they are. They love to hear from constituents. They take constituent input seriously, and talk to them about why it is important for them to support funded public defense. And again, you don't have to have been personally involved or have a family member involved.
Mhm.
The other thing I tell my community members when I go to these community events is the majority of my clients are going to come home, right? Only a very small minority are sent away for life.
Right.
They're coming back to your communities, and at the very minimum you have to care,
Yes.
right? Because what's happening when they're coming back out. But contact your city council members and talk to them about why funding public defense is not only important but is really um, important to public safety. I say this all the time and people always look at me strangely that we know more about what will impact public safety than the police. The
Yes.
police come when you call 911.
Right.
They don't 99% of the time. They don't know what happened from that got that person to call 911
Hmm.
or about the person that is going to be brought into the system. We do. We have attorney-client privilege. Our clients tell us things that they do not tell their dearest loved ones, and we know how they got to where they are, and 99% of the time it's a system failure. It's
Yeah.
either the family policing system, which in the child welfare system, it's either a failure of our education system, or it's a failure of our community, or it's a failure of our healthcare, right? Most of my clients who are mentally ill are only getting treatment when they committed a crime. That's the only
Absolutely.
access to treatment.
And they've known for decades they've been mentally ill and nobody in the system. They've been always pushed aside. It is the craziest thing. I have
So
one final,
city council members would
yeah,
be what my
city
advice would be.
council members. Okay. Here's my final question for you. Literally, final question. June is Immigrant Heritage Month. What's your message to the immigrant community in light of all of the stuff that's going on?
Um, I'm fighting like hell for us to be able to stand next to immigrants in immigration court. I am doing everything I possibly can to get funding to be able to do that. Um, I think it's a time for I do these know your rights trainings, and I tell the people who attend these who are often in tears and asking questions about what will happen to them, and worried about not just their economic livelihoods, but more importantly, being separated from their families,
Yes,
to be prepared, to have a plan in place, but also to there are community agencies and organizations who are here for immigrants, right? Juntos is still here. Nationality Services Center is still here. HIAS is still here. And they are working overtime to provide the type of support that this community needs. And the public defenders stand with our clients, regardless of if they're involved in the criminal justice system or not, that we are doing all that we can to get the funding to be able to stand next to them in federal immigration court.
Keisha Hudson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it was an
Thank you
incredible
so much, my
conversation.
sister, and thank you for giving
The
us.
opportunity.
How can people reach you, and where's the Know Your Rights training happening?
So we don't, for important reasons, you're not going to see me publicize
Yes,
where
yes.
the immigration know your rights trainings are, because
Mm-hmm.
that will be where the ICE agents pull
Pop
up.
up. Mm-hmm.
Uh, so but you can reach us on the Philly Defenders. We are on Instagram, Facebook, um, TikTok, and our website is www.phillydefenders.org, and you can reach us that way. through those
Yeah.
different platforms. We do other community events. We do expungement clinics, which we publicize quite often. We
Hmm.
have a partnership with the Free Library, so we're moving around different libraries in Philadelphia, where we're providing resources, including expungement resources to community members at the libraries. So we are out in the community, and for example, last year we did over 100 community events. So you will find us, but I think the website is a good place. I would say for non-citizens listening in, reach out to your city council members because they will give you information about when these events are happening, and you can find out that information without us having to put it out
Out in the public,
in the
absolutely.
public eye.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
World Refugee Day is Sunday, and there is going to be a gathering in Love Park, and held by the Nationality Services Center. They're telling clients not to come for good reason, but we're hoping that I will be there. We're hoping that there will be a really great turnout to really emphasize the impact that asylees and refugees bring to Philadelphia.
Thank you so much for everything that you have
Thank you so
been
much.
doing and continues to do. Continue to make your soup because I see you making up your soup and your dumplings and your thing. And
Every time.
find the respite, my sister. You have to find because you're doing the work. Find the respite as needed, okay? And
Uh,
whenever you want a thing and you can't get it, call me because
maybe
I think
maybe
I gave you Scotch bonnet peppers one year.
I'm gonna need them again. We can't find them. We cannot find them. But you
And
said touch on it.
yeah, I'm growing Scotch bonnet peppers in my garden. Thank you so much. Continue the yeoman's work, and we will continue to support you in any way that we can.
Thank
Okay?
you for having me. It's an
You're
honor
welcome.
to
You're so
discuss.
welcome.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. That was Chief Defender Keisha Hudson, who has been doing the work in our community since 2021, but it's a 22-year career for her. That was a great conversation. And I'm grateful that you were around to listen to what she had to say. I think many of you finally realized that immigration is not a simple process, that going through the process is not a simple one. Tens of thousands of dollars people have to pay to make sure that they're doing all the right things, they're following the process, they're filing all these papers. Everything costs $700, $3,700 to file. You have to pay another $1,000 to go get all your blood work done. You have to pay another 50. It's a ton of money. So when we sit and we have these, what I would call non-enlightened conversations about, immigrants just coming in here and the folks are going in doing the right thing and they're being snatched in the process and deported. I to Joanne's point, she says, I don't know what happens to the people who have just not been home and don't have any family members there. I don't know, Joanne. They're going to have to go and figure it out. And so to that point, many immigrants have a plan. They do. They have a plan. They have their to-go bags. They know what they're doing to make sure that they're as safe as they possibly can be. They've gone really quiet. They're underground. And the conversations have been just one of fear and fright with their green cards, with their American passports. If they say that they have more than one passport, then they take away the American passport and tell them that they don't need to be here and they send them out of the country. This is there's no way to describe what this is, except when we look at Germany back in the 1940s, right? There's a whole groups of people are being pushed into corners and marginalized. And so you wonder, so when you hear people talk about immigration now you're educated on what it really takes for an immigrant to come here and get a green card to go through the process and do what they're supposed to do. Now you understand what it absolutely takes. And so instead of talking from a place of sheer ignorance, we need to really be aware of what's going on. She was great. She was absolutely great. So I'm going to pull some of the conversation so that we can replay it for you, because that was just wonderful. Remember, season 3, episode 2 is now out with Dr. Rufus Sylvester Lynch around Black fathers, what it takes for them. He's looking for a Black Fathers Commission, commission for men who are going through all kinds of things in their lives and trying to find a place for them to belong in the middle of people telling them that they couldn't, shouldn't, wouldn't, even as they work their tail feathers off to make sure that their families are okay. And he also talks about why fathers disappear. And then he has some strong words for fathers themselves. So Thank you all so much for joining us on this episode of Mornings with Mother. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye. Oh, Lord. Bye-bye.